Hey everyone, it's Nella here. This video is going to be talking about the things I've made for my dolls. Specifically, let me grab one. The clay things I've made for my dolls, or ceramics, whatever you want to call them. Yes, I think I have mentioned this before. I'm an artist of the visual kind. But my stuff tends to be, my mediums tend to be either photography or clay. Specifically because I like drawing and I like the effects of drawing. However, I have a lot of difficulty getting proportions right. Basically what I draw or paint, I often find doesn't really resemble what's in my head. Whereas when I'm doing stuff with clay, I don't always, actually most of the time, I don't go in knowing what color I want to look like, what I want to look like, or even what it's going to be. I find there's a lot less pressure with clay. So I tend to succeed more often than not. And all of the things I'm going to show you in this video are all things I made one summer, in one summer, doing a pottery class. I say class, it wasn't really a class, with my granny for one summer. This was back when, I think it was actually the last summer I spent down at our family's cottage, because I used to spend the full summer down there, but stopped because I ended up doing other things during summer. Oh crap, my cat somehow unlocked the door. Wait a moment. And I'm back. Yeah, my cat whined outside, so he opened the door I'd closed and came running towards me, so I had to let him out. Back to what I was talking about. So what happened was my granny found out that there was this potter further into the provincial park than we are. And she went, hey, you know what, we can go. And she goes, I'm going to go there on such and such days to do pottery. Do you want to come with me? Now, yes, I do. I think what she said was that it was going to be my birthday present. She was like, this will be my present to you, so don't expect anything come your birthday. And I'm like, I know, Granny. And one of the things I knew going in there was that I want to make things for my dolls. Didn't really have that much of an interest of doing like vases. I don't really like keeping flowers around, so vases would go wasted over here. I want to do something that I'd be able to use and make props that I wouldn't be able to find. At that point, I'd gone drew just a bit earlier in the year. So there was the 3 minis, and I was planning on getting a mini boy. I was planning on getting Fusio de Bois, or Fu, who is Flair's best guy friend. So I ended up making all sorts of things. One of them was this strange thing, which is actually a 2-person bathtub for minis. The base is a serving plate for doing fancy meals. The potter had a whole bunch of essentially molds, which were, you would take a slab of clay and then you'd press it in, and boom, you have plates or bowls or that sort of stuff. So it was pre-made forms that you could use for constructing other things. So I end up using a dinner plate, and the potter also had these well, essentially it wasn't a machine. It was like a spaghetti press on the wall. And what you do is you took the thing of clay and you pushed it and it came out, you know, oh, like maybe it came out coiled, maybe it came out really smooth in little coils like this. Once again, my camera is horrible at picking up details, so you will have to trust me that the things I say are here, they're there. So there's the coils, and on the outside I smoothed it a bit with my fingers so it looks more like ridges. And one of the cool things about what the potter had was she had a room and had all these big buckets, and the buckets were filled with glaze, and you dipped your things into the glaze. Now, I decided I didn't want to be boring and just have my things be one color, mostly because one of the things she told me as we were doing our thing, as we finished our first things, she went, glaze is not like paint. If you mix red and blue glaze, like if you do a red coat and then you do a blue coat, you're not going to end up with purple. You may end up with yellow or brown or multicolored. Basically, glaze is a chemical reaction, so it's not all like paint. And naturally, I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. So I decided that I was just going to mess around with the glazes, and if it came out in a crazy color, then it came out in a crazy color. So for this one, I knew that I wanted to make a bathtub for the girls. Because I figured, you know, like, that's the thing where I'm not going to find it. Originally I wanted to put feet on this. But because of the weight, that just didn't really seem like a smart idea. The glaze is brown because I wanted something earthy. And I'm not sure, can't really tell on this. You might be able, you can tell more on the inside, that there are some patches where you can see where there seems to be less glaze, or where you can actually see the unglazed clay, the clay's natural color. What happened there was, the thing with these big buckets of glaze, you have to stir it with a big, you have to stir it like you stir paint, because it solidifies and sludges at the bottom. I hadn't stirred the dark brown I was using, I hadn't stirred it quite enough. So when I dipped this in, because I had to dip it way in, when I had to dip it in, I ended up with a bit of this brown sludge. And instead of just like wiping it off and going like, oh, well, I guess I have to stir more, as the potter was helping my granny out, I took my hands and I started actually smearing the brown glaze, which of course was affecting how the glaze that was on there was acting, because I was moving around this glaze while it was still liquid. I was going for kind of a worn look for this bathtub. It's been, like most things in the Curiosity Shop, goodness knows from what time period it's from, how old it is, all that stuff. So I want to give it like a really weird finish. And the last stuff I did, because I did 2 layers of this dark brown, the last one was I took, I think it was a seafoam green, or no, it was a moss green. And I took this dipper that the potter had, and I actually poured it over and inside, and I kind of like swished it all around, so it got stuck on some of the coils. There's a bit of it that like dripped over the side, so essentially it looks like this really old beat up bathtub. And one of the other things I made was this, which isn't glazed. This is painted. This was, it was fired, and then I painted it using my own paints. And the print that you see on this is actually jewelry that I had pressed, well, jewelry and keys that I had pressed into the clay. This is a chaise lounge for Fleur. And it fits 2 minis. And it was draped over cardboard rolls, which is why it kept its shape. But the actual spots where they curve are specific to Fleur's body, so it's made for mature minis. Yeah. So this is doubled as Fleur's bed, as a couch for Drew and Fleur, that sort of stuff. Actually, interesting note about the bathtub. This bathtub in the Curiosity Shop appears as a bathtub, but also as Finn's bed / nest. Finn has 2 blankets and keeps all of his toys in the bathtub. And those things I showed you at the beginning of the video are actually plates and cups that I'd made for the dolls, or for the planned dolls at that point. There's one cup for Tiny. There's a cup for Fleur's guy friend. Essentially, the cups were all different shapes and sizes, depending on which character is for, what their hand shape is like. The larger plates were glaze that's painted on, not the dip glaze, because I want to keep the stuff that is in the patterns. I want to keep the glazes separate. And you can actually, I can tell just by looking at them whether I used paint on glaze or a different kind of glaze, and sort of what techniques I used. Here's one of the other ones. There's the plate for Tiny that has a unicorn on it. Here's the strange centerpiece. I don't know, it might be a picture. So those were the cups and dishes that I made. And now I'm going to show you what I think is the coolest piece I did. I didn't build this table, but what is on the table I made. There you go. That is the tabletop for the essentially dining room table of the Curiosity Shop, or one of the dining rooms. It was a slab of clay that I was pressing various pieces of jewelry, various other things the potter had. The jewelry was my own, but the potter had like drawers, I think like 2 or 3 drawers filled with things to press into clay to get cool patterns. So that's what I did with that. And I liked what I made so much that I went like, I don't want to just crumple this up, I want to use this for something. So the potter and I talked about like how I could use it, how I could incorporate it into something. Yeah, by the way, the potter thought that my dolls were like awesome and super cool. So I went like, well, could it maybe be like a tabletop or something? And she was like, yeah, you could definitely do that. So there are holes for affixing it to the wooden table / to a board to put on the wall, that sort of thing. And the cracks, or actually as it fired, the clay expanded in a way that it cracked, but it cracked in like a curve pattern. Like it kind of just looks like veins, sort of. I've since broken 2 of the pieces off, so it's easier for me to pack this up into boxes for when we had to get some remodeling done, as well as just so it's easier if I don't have the stuff on display to keep it, from breaking, because it is still fired clay. An interesting story about the table itself. This table, which I still need to fix that. The table essentially looks like a Japanese low table for the minis. They have to be kneeling to use it. That actually, the table didn't cost me a penny. Because it's from the Friendly Neighborhood Exchange Yard, or as the province calls it, the transfer yard. How it works in the provincial park I'm in, and I think it's like this in the other provincial parks, is that the cottages are kind of are organized into blocks, and each block has two shacks for household garbage and one shack for recycling. But if you have brush, which you're at the cottage, so of course you're going to be cutting like branches or trees fall over. So brush, construction materials, anything that isn't household garbage has to be taken to a transfer yard. And I think there's only 2 transfer yards. One in one section and one in the other. And the transfer yard is where everyone from all the other lakes brings in their stuff that isn't household garbage. And every week or two, every couple of weeks, a big truck comes and picks up some of the stuff that's in the transfer yard, and they bring it over to the dump or that sort of thing where it will be properly disposed of. The cool thing about the transfer yard is you can bring stuff back from it. So I brought home like a table for my dolls, but I've also been there, and like if you're a carpenter, it's wonderful because there's actually a lot of perfectly usable wood that people have just, they used it for something else and then they tossed it away. And it's like, well, you can still use that. Or there'll be metal, or there'll be windows or bricks or, gosh, what's some other things we've seen? Piping, there's tires, old appliances like old fridges and stoves, all of those things. And it's actually encouraged that you go there and you bring stuff back. When you show up, the attendant who's there, who's an absolutely awesome guy, the attendants that's there will say, like, well, are you dropping off something or are you here to shop? Like, because he knows, he actually, is super helpful. If you say you're looking for something, he'll let you know if it's been brought in. I think they had one time where I guess it must have been some sort of fair had happened or something, because someone had tossed, 25 or 50 of these stuffed animals inside of plastic baggies had just been tossed into one of the sections, and he's like, yeah, so if you need any kids' toys, they're still in plastic bags, so they're not dirty, they're brand new. It was this all sorts of crazy stuff, and he's an awesome guy, so he's super helpful. So what happened was I went there and I said, I'm looking for a piece of wood to fix a ceramic thing about yay big. Have you seen anything like that been brought in? And he goes, well, you can check in the woods, and he's also really good for directing, okay, this is where such and such pile is. Because the transfer yard is pretty big. Pretty big. So I ended up finding that. There's been some absolutely amazing stuff. I went down to the lake last year, and I brought my boyfriend with me, and he actually found, oh gosh, it was like a nautical theme lamp. All he did was fix the wiring, and boom, 2 perfectly usable lamps. That's the sort of stuff that you find. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah, so those are what I made specifically for my dolls. I made a couple of other things for the Curiosity Shop. I made a statue, really creepy angel statue. Made a statue, made a little, I guess it's a little half chair. It sort of fits a mini, but it'll probably fit the tinies better. I haven't tried that yet. And I made some other things for myself. Even though I was kind of laughed at the fact that so many people made like plates and stuff. I did actually end up making plates, but they're pretty much decorative. I was messing around with pressing things into clay. So yeah, that's about it. Bye everyone.